So, welcome to my channel, and I want to go deeper into if they do this, it's not love, but 5 signs you're in a trauma bond situation. Because I know this can be very big for a lot of people because we don't know the difference of what this looks like. We're confusing love with trauma bonding, and you can be able to tell because when you're in a trauma bond experience, there is a lot of emotional roller coasters, a lot of things that are going on, and especially happens in narcissistic relationships or difficult relationships. And my overall goal is to help you get into authentic relationship with yourself and other people. So what I want you to do is I want you just to kind of sit back, get comfortable, get some tea, and just kind of take some notes of exactly if you find yourself doing any of these things, so you can be able to have the tools to know the difference between the two and just know if you're in a trauma bond situation. Right? Because with the trauma bond, it can feel like a lot. It can feel like this love and hate relationship. And so I want you to kind of have the tools to be able to do that. And so know that I used to think, just even as a therapist, I used to think that love was supposed to be this intense feeling. The feeling that we can't live without each other, right? Remember those back in school and elementary school times, and sometimes middle school and high school as well. But it's this I can't live without each other kind of love. And this kind of love makes you feel like you're fighting for each other, right? A lot of times we confuse that fighting with passion, but a lot of times we do this even when it hurts us. But one day I had to ask myself, if this is love, why does it feel so exhausting? And this is something I want you to ask yourself too, and what that looks like for you. If it feels so exhausting to you, you want to ask yourself why that is. And I had to realize that it wasn't in love. I was stuck in a trauma bond situation, and everybody has a situation that happens to them, but we don't want to talk about, right? There's this one guy or one partner that you have that it feels like an actual drug being with them, right? Because that you get so intertwined in what's going on with them that you start losing sight of you, and then you keep going back to them. It's like this emotional roller coaster. So if you ever find yourself unable to walk away from someone, even though they're hurting, and if you ever mistaken emotional chaos for passion, then this video is for you. So today we're going to talk into the 5 signs and breaking these down of the 5 signs that you are in a trauma bond and not in a love situation. So thanks for joining me today. And so the first sign that we have here is that someone that is in emotional roller coaster, right? And so this is someone who feels really high highs and really low lows when it comes to dealing with somebody else. And you can tell this because when it feels like this actual, I compare it to a drug because that's what it feels like. It hits those parts of the brain where it does feel like a drug. And so what happens is that it feels like you're an actual roller coaster. Sometimes there's times where you're like laughing and having fun. It feels really intense. But then the last week, you probably had someone that was, whether calling you out your name or making it seem like something was wrong with you. And this is constantly happening because of this emotional roller coaster that you are experiencing. So if you ever feel like you're on top of the world one moment, you're on top of the world with this person, and then the next time that you feel like you are in this space where it just feels exhausting for you, like it just feels like it's a lot. So the next moment you don't even know where they stand a lot of times. And it's going to happen in situationships as well. So like one day you're the favorite person and the next you're distant. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. The next you're distant, or they're even cruel to you sometimes, you're not sure or understanding why. That is not love. That's a trauma bond. And one of the biggest signs is this. You have this constant emotional roller coaster and whiplash where the highs feel so good, just like we talked about with the drug situation, and the lows feel like the end of the world a lot of times. And if you know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. I'm not alone in this as far as feeling these highs and these lows when it comes with this person. And I want you to know that here is why this happens. So, and here's why it's dangerous. Your brain is starting to crave those feelings like anyone does with any type of addiction, right? And so even when they're treating you terribly, you hold on to these feelings that make us feel like we're in a situation that feels so good, because we start, if you notice, you can notice this is happening because when you don't talk to them for a certain period of time, you start to get like that itch, right? That itch to talk to them. You start getting that itch to just think that you want to just speak to them, or you have to just speak to them, right? And so those rare moments, they treat you good, those good moments, like proof that the relationship is worth saving. And so we get so stuck in those high moments. And so if you're in this cycle, I want you to ask yourself, am I chasing the person on their best days while ignoring who they are the rest of the time? So I really talk about this within my sessions and my membership as well, that you really have to pay attention on how somebody is treating you. Right? And so are we just chasing for that high moment on when they're going to be nice again, and hoping that, hoping this is the time that they stay nice, and hoping that this is the time that they stay in a place where they're going to actually be there for you, and we just kind of keep waiting and waiting each time to hope for that moment, right? And we keep going through this relational loop, this cycle that we're constantly in when it comes to this certain person. And so sign number 2 is you feel addicted to them, right? And I hate to kind of use, it's just kind of any addiction example, but you feel that it's just a lot, right? So let's be real. Have you ever felt like you could not let go of someone? Okay, so even though you knew deep down they weren't good for you, you still allowed yourself to be just smitten by the person. Like, even though you know deep down they weren't good for you, it's just no matter how badly they hurt you, the thought of being without them made you sometimes feel physically sick, right? And this is exactly what I'm talking about. And no, you're not alone here. Like, we all have went through situations that are like this when it comes to a certain person, but know that it's also not love, that's an addiction, right? Trauma bonds work the same way as a drug. Those good moments flood your brain with this dopamine hit. Okay, and so making you crave more, while the bad moments, they make you feel desperate. They make you feel like you need to be able to be with this person, and they make you feel desperate to fix it and get back to this high feeling again. And so that's why we kind of get wrapped up into this cycle consistently. So this is why you check your phone 50 times a day. This is why that you replay probably their messages. You sometimes, maybe you texting a message you want to send and then deleting it. Why you replay the conversation over in your mind. Why you keep going back even when you swear you don't want to, right? Like, I know that this happens, and a lot of times we swear we won't, but we still do. But I want you to really be able to ask yourself, am I staying because this is good for me, or am I staying because I'm afraid of losing them, right? Am I afraid of the withdrawal after they're gone? And we really need to be able to ask ourselves these questions of, what does this mean if I do choose to go? Like, what does this mean if I allow myself to really sit in the withdrawal period? And then the withdrawal can look different for everybody. Like, sometimes people's withdrawal, people literally will feel sick. I have clients who literally felt sick without the person because they're not used to that feeling. This person attached somewhere in them. They attached to someone in the need that they were missing, that they are afraid of losing, right? They're afraid. They got like a little taste, right, of this love that they never had before, that they end up doing this. And then a lot of times we're hovering over the block button but not pressing it, looking at the missed call. So this is a sign that you could be in this trauma bond. Okay, so now let's go into sign number 3. And so with sign number 3, you make excuses for their behavior. Now, I know this happens quite a bit. We're making excuses for people's behavior and how they're treating us, right? And you can tell this because we don't want to tell our friends or our family a certain thing about what they're doing, which says a lot. It says a lot because you're so focused on what someone views them as versus just this is what they're presenting, right? It's not how someone's viewing them, it's just how they acted. So if you ever catch yourself saying, well, they didn't mean it, or they just been through a lot, or we're giving excuses of why they're treating you a certain way, and know that someone can have the worst possible trauma history ever, but it doesn't give them the right to treat you a certain way. We also have the same resources with a lot of different things, where they choose to talk to a partner, journal about it. It's a lot of different things that we can choose to do. So a lot of times we listen and give people this grace, but there's a difference between understanding someone's trauma and allowing it to be a free pass for their behavior. Okay, I'm just gonna let that sit right there. Because if you find yourself constantly making excuses, telling yourself they had a rough childhood, or they had, that's why they're, treating me like this, or maybe they had just a really rough day at work, and that's why they're talking to me like this. We kind of give them this way out and excuses when no, that's not ever okay for someone to treat you that way. And so maybe we just use excuses on why they lash out, or they didn't mean to hurt me. They don't have trust issues, right? Or we if we find someone has trust issues because they got hurt before, or at what point do their issues stop justifying my pain, right? Ask yourself that. Like, at what point is it just enough where you know that just because someone had a bad experience does not give them the right to take it out on you? That's never okay for someone to be able to do that or to try to do that to you. So understand that love does not mean abandoning yourself, okay? In order to keep someone comfortable. And I really want you to take that in. Love doesn't mean abandoning yourself in order to keep someone else comfortable. Okay, and so sign number 4, you feel more anxious than safe. I really want you to really list down and let me know if any of this resonated with you, or you find yourself doing any of these signs when it comes to trauma bond, because you ever feel like your whole mood depends on them. Like, they take up so much emotional space, right? Where you're not able to have your own emotions because it ends up turning back on them. Like, one wrong text, one change in their tone, and suddenly your chest is tight and you don't know why, or you feel just like this anxious feeling within your stomach because you don't know what's going to happen next. Like, you're really in a space where your body is just responding to, we don't know what's going to happen, and so it tries to protect itself. So understand that love should make you feel safe, okay? But if you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, if afraid of their next mood shift, understand that that is not love. That's survival mode. Like, you're literally, your body's prepping for you to know on what it needs to run, what it needs to do. It's really thinking of ways to conjure on how to make you feel safe with this person. And I want to be honest here, the worst part isn't even the anxiety. It's the fact, right? It's the fact that when things are good, you feel relief instead of actual joy. And this says a lot. When you feel relief instead of joy, that's how you know you're in a trauma bond. You have to understand this. And this is not to make you feel bad about it. It's to make you be aware, because when you're in a trauma bond, you're connected from your hurt to this person's hurt, and it's connecting together. And so it's going to be this constant backlash when it comes to, being with this person. So I want you to ask yourself this: am I in love, or am I just relieved when they're not hurting me? Okay, so I need you to really be able to think about this. Am I in love, or am I relieved when they're not hurting me? And so just a reminder, like, that makes it kind of go back to like the sign 1, when we're on this emotional roller coaster when it comes to, being in this type of relationship, in this type of space. And so the last sign, right, that you are in a trauma bond situation when you're afraid of being without them. Okay. A lot of times we don't realize on how much we put on ourselves when it comes to these relationships, because you don't stay because it's good. Okay. You stay because you're afraid of what it would be like without them, right? What happens if you leave, right? Sometimes we're worried about starting over. Sometimes we're worried about what we would do next, right? And if this person truly loved you, why does the idea of walking away feel like you're losing yourself? Okay. I need you to, and I know a lot of times we don't ask ourselves these things because trauma bonds don't just make you attached to the person, right? I know this can be hard, but they make you attach your self-worth to whether or not they choose you. Okay. So I know this can be kind of hard to hear if you're in a trauma bond, if you're in this space, and that's the hardest to kind of take in, right? Because if you'll notice it, because you feel really devastated when they get upset or they do things like that, because you're worried that they're not going to choose you or they're going to leave. And that's the hardest part, realizing that sometimes it's not even about them. It's about proving to yourself that you are worth staying for, right? And so be able to have that just experience for yourself. But I just want to remind you of something, right? You do not have to fight for love. You do not have to fight for love. Love does not require to convince someone to treat you well. Okay, so love does not require you to convince someone to treat you well. And I know a lot of times people don't tell us this stuff. Like growing up, they don't tell us this stuff. And so that's why I created my Beyond You podcast, because I need you to when you're going through a situation like this, you have to look beyond what you know now. You have to look beyond your pain, beyond your trauma, to see something that's different than what you know now. So I want you to know these signs so you can really understand that if you're doing one of these signs, I need you to unlearn that this is the type of love that you want, where you're afraid of someone to leave, but you want to feel safe in that love and that experience. So now that you recognize this, I want what to do next, right? Like, what does this mean now? So healing from a trauma bond isn't about cutting them off or hoping for the best, right? It's about choosing yourself in the small ways every single day. Whether it's I talked about in my last video on just trusting yourself and different things like that, but those little small promises you make to yourself. You can be able to start journaling. Maybe it's something of asking yourself, do I love them or am I afraid to lose them? Okay, like asking yourself these things and be able to check in with yourself and what are the things that you do need. And I know a lot at first you don't know exactly what you need, so if you want a resource for that, let me know down in the comments. I can provide that for you. But I want you to set one small boundary, just one, and see how it feels. It could be something of, that you're going to just call one time less today, right? Like, think about what that is. I want you to surround yourself with reminders of real love, the kind that doesn't make you question your worth, whether that is from people around you, whether it's just you recognizing that there is love, that the people that make you feel safe, lean into those people. So if this hits home for you, drop "I deserve real love" in the comments. Let's fill the space with reminders that we are worthy for peace. Okay, and so please follow, subscribe. I want for us to continue to talk about these things so you know how to create those authentic spaces for yourself. I'm going to be posting weekly, I have the shorts as well to be able to have that, but please subscribe so we can be able to stay connected. And if you want more tools to break the cycle and start healing, make sure to subscribe, because I want you to know that we're in this together. Hope you have a good day, and this is helpful to you. If any questions, let me know down below, and we'll make sure to answer your comments.